Here we are, episode 12, Weed for the People podcast. We got a real treat for y'all. We got Josh from Royal Ca, one of the real ones in the game, surviving the storm. It's been a fun week, man. We're just out here grinding. A lot of shit happening in Catalyst world. Today, though, we're going to focus on Josh and Royal Ca and what they're doing right, how they're surviving. Look, one of the few brands that I actually regularly have on my nightstand. That ain't no fake endorsement. That's some real ass shit. Just want to welcome them on. I'll say this. Sometimes the growers, not in the typical way, tend to be a little shy. So we had to do a little coaxing to get him on. So I feel extra blessed. We're going to get to hear his story. I think it's just something that's super cool to hear these stories. And I've said it a bunch of times on this show, to hear these stories of people that are surviving despite the poor policy and beating the odds, and they're still here standing. And anybody that's still here standing, is a fucking winner in my eyes. I'm going to start out by, asking what your position at Royal Ca and, what do you do there is just to kind of on the general day to day.
Well, my position is kind of whatever's needed. So right now I'm facilitating all the sales, and, I'll go in the grow, and I've got my lane in the grow, and my partner Erin has her lane, and everything else in between: manufacturing, product procurement, research and development of new products, new things that we want to make, rosin consistencies or something in the live resin, and hunts.
So you got your lane. What is your lane exactly?
In the grow?
In the grow, yeah.
Typically, I look out over all the environmental systems. I keep an eye on, the soil balance and the tests that we're getting back, and reading those with her, and coming up with a plan together to kind of address the imbalances and things like that we find.
Cool, right on. Let's go back to how you got started. What was your kind of initial, launch into cannabis in general, and then how you crossed over from 215 into the legal market, and what that was like. We'll start with the history of your involvement in the industry.
Yeah, I went to visit my father, who had recently moved to a place called Humboldt, and I was living down in LA at the time, and I was like, Humboldt, where's that? And I took a long drive and went and visited my dad, and ended up chilling out for a little longer than I thought I would, and feeling more relaxed when I got back home. And I was like, wow, that place it's pretty special. And eventually I would visit him more frequently, and on one of the trips I met someone, and I ended up moving up to Humboldt, and her family was third generation, I believe, growers. So I was introduced to kind of that circle and crowd, and one thing led to another, and I was putting up lights in my garage, and I'll never forget my first run. I had help from the community. I was doing jiu-jitsu at the time, and a lot of the guys were growing, and so they gave me tips and clones and all that kind of stuff, and I knocked it out of the park. Got super lucky on my first one.
There's a weird thing. I hear that's like a
very conservative. Yeah. I was like super scared to mess up.
Hit the clock, G.
And
that's our guy Nathan, our tech guy. No, I was kidding. I couldn't hit play. Sorry to interrupt. Just so we get a flow. So you get the first one.
The first one, it turned out
of the park.
Really good. Super lucky. Followed good advice. Tried not to get in the way and mess things up. Just let the plant do what it's supposed to do, and not try to overdo it or push it too hard. And it was just such a high, like literally and metaphorically speaking, to kind of hit that mark and see what those, the reaction that of people who would look at the pounds, and also, the reward for it.
Yeah, there's different times.
Like, okay.
Yeah, you're into it. Yeah.
I gotta, and so we just kind of built from there. And at that time it was hydro, flood and drain, and got pretty good at that. New phenos, or hunting something or having something, the market wanted was important. We primarily grew OGs. That's what the market wanted then. And so, I grew headband here and there, but it was mostly OG, like Ghost OG, SFE, There was a few others, but
partial to the OG, but
yeah. So, and then I don't know I might have lost.
Yeah. So we're
oh yeah. How did I get into the 215?
Yeah.
So I was getting a little long winded, but, I met Erin, and around that time, a friend of mine, John, was growing living soil or organics. He was doing it in pots at the time. And he brought over some of his OG, and I smoked it, and I was like, holy shit. Like, this one it just tastes better, has more layers. There's something about it. And it was clearly better than mine, just in the taste department primarily. Like, ours looked really good, and it smoked really clean and all that, but there was like a little extra layer, and there was just something about it that made me want more of that. And that's like my number one metric for good weed, is like, it should kind of call you back to like, or your brain should flip and go, I wonder if I can get some more of this.
100%. I don't have like a super good palate, but when I can tell when it's organic. It just has that different little flavor to it that doesn't, I don't know, maybe it doesn't bite as hard. And to your point, it calls you back a little bit. So then you were in the rosin game a little bit when it was kind of first, rolling out. How did that?
We were a little later to the game, actually, I would say. But I could see that live resin was going to race to the bottom, and it was just a matter of time. I knew things around the industry. I could see the scale. Live resin's such a good, thorough. It's just so good at extracting everything out of it and leaving behind what you don't want, that it can clean up mistakes. So if there's a mistake with the crop, live resin. And as you see the industry scale, and, live resin, you got to think back, like maybe at its peak, 2017, there was, half a dozen or more live resin companies that were really particular about where they sourced, maybe even like us, grew it themselves, selected for it. They put the effort into it that you would into solventless, all the same variables of, all the highest quality, the best flavor things, and then just paying attention to every little detail, and so much flavor would come out, and it would just be such a high quality product. Whereas once it got scaled and you're doing, thousands and thousands of pounds that are being processed out in the fields, in the weather, in the heat of the day, getting frozen less quickly, all these variables that equal out, less love, less, attention to detail, or smaller batch things that you can do, because quality and quantity, they're at opposite ends of the spectrum, just like a heaviest deadlift in the world opposed to the marathon runner.
Right.
It's just, you can't have both. You can't.
Well, it's been interesting to me. I think sometimes some of the financial guys come in and try to tell the growers, like, no, you need to cut this corner or that corner. You need to go for a bigger yield or whatever it is. And like, maybe in the short term on a spreadsheet, it might help. But if you don't have customer retention because of the quality, you ain't got shit. Let me ask you a broader question about Humboldt, because, kind of what's going on up there interests me. And, obviously the promises of Prop 64 have been broken on a large scale.
You're referring to the acre.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's the original sin. I think there's other ones that are bad, is terrible as well, as far as the policy. But, a lot of people, or maybe I think some do, but maybe the customers don't realize that I think the original worst sin, probably worse than everything that, could eventually be, reformed and amended. Like someday they're going to reform this tax policy. Someday they'll get the compliance, but I don't know when, but it's going to happen. But by letting that cat out of the bag, it's out of the bag. Like, you're not getting the toothpaste back in that tube. It's permanent damage. And to your point, as the craft farmers, some of them leave the marketplace and or go, back to the black market or whatever. It has destroyed the diversity of product as well as the quality. What is it like if, since Erin has roots there, and I'm sure you got your ear there, what is like the big changes since Prop 64 in Humboldt. You know, I'm familiar with some of the meetings. I keep in touch with, you know, some people, you know, through Instagram and stuff. And I'm always interested to get their input on, you know, different stuff we're doing. Cause really at the end of the day, if we're being fucking honest, like, you know, whose shoulders do we stand on? It really is the, you know, original guys that were in Humboldt, that were taking the big risk. And then that to me is where the center of the culture is. And then it branches out from there. What is it like up there now? Like, what's the general sentiment? I'm not saying you speak for all of Humboldt, but if there's any insight into that, I think it's certainly interesting. Yeah. No, I know, but it's just a little color behind it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like this might be too harsh of a statement, but I think it's true. It feels like a broken economy. You know, it's like, there's just the growth, you know, a lot of the grocery stores have closed. You know, there's several open still, but there's just not that many people in there when I walk in there. Everyone in the communities felt it financially. I can really see that super clearly more this year than any other year. Just every circle of my friends and friends of friends and friends of friends are all affected financially and just psychologically too, because, you know, the community's like, well, what now? You know, I don't speak for them, but that's what No,
I'm just asking you.
I'm just kind of
someone with an ear there, the general opinion. I mean, do you think there's a good path forward or a way of bringing back some of these, farms that have faded or moving on to other stuff, or, you know, what's your,
like a renaissance? I mean,
is there
there would have to be a change right at the state level, because the price, you know, that's king. So if there's no money.
Yeah, it's a tragic. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that to me is, you know, because there was a promise made and it was blatantly broken. I won't, you know, there's different rumors on who broke it, right?
Right.
I feel like once I hear a rumor 8 times, it's probably true from reliable people, but without knowing for sure. But, you know, to me, it's just a huge tragedy that at the end of the day, the diversity of the product, that was always going to be the promise. And it was until 2023, the year we're sitting in now, I think it was either end of 2023 or till it started, that those 1 acre farms would be able to get, you know, a stronghold, and then they were going to, you know, blow the caps off. And then what ended up happening, you know, is Humboldt was reasonable about it for the most part and put caps on it. And certain counties were like, fuck it, grow as much as you want. And then because of the difficulty to access it, and it's, you know, it has altitude. So, you know, that's an advantage as far as quality, but as far as sunlight, you know, it's at a disadvantage to say, you know, Santa Barbara County or whatever. And, you know, I think if you would have asked people, so who's going to be the biggest producer of cannabis in 2012? And they came back with Santa Barbara County, that would have been a laughable,
super laughable
answer.
Right.
It's not funny.
Yeah, right.
Thick. Yeah, right. But so anyway, so that you get so getting from 215 and you know, flipping over to Prop 64, whatever, you know, legalization. Tell me a little bit about, you know, that process and how that worked.
Yeah, it was you know, when we did really well, you know, I was shocked actually. Wasn't ready for, when we first came out, we were known as, even though we primarily grew flowers previously, we did an experimental project back then in 2014 with solvent extraction and a guy I did jiu-jitsu with. That was, you know, he was working with it and learning how to do it. And I went to Wonderland to deliver some of our products and flower at the time to Kevin. And I saw this concentrate jar there, and I'd heard about it before. It was called Southern Humboldt Concentrates. And it was a live resin, fresh frozen gram of Skittles. And so I bought it and I took it home, and I had to get something to smoke it in, because I just smoked joints, you know, at the time. And I was like, this seems a little crazy, but I'm going to try it, you know?
You know, I'm not a big dabber, but now that they have the puff coat, it doesn't feel as extreme. Yeah,
it's way different. But the torch and like, like I had a titanium nail that I had to get, you know, it seemed kind of like a little gnarly.
Right.
But the flavor that popped off on that was unbelievable. And it just clicked in my head that, you know, concentrates were the only way for the farmer to share what they smell on the day of harvest, or, you know, when they're really pinching a sugar leaf and getting all of those terpenes that are present before the cure.
Right.
And it's just
that's interesting. Yeah.
Because they change from when a flower is fresh, and then you cure it. It smells the same, but it doesn't. It changes.
Right.
Because certain terpenes are gone and the profile changes a little bit. So there's like a whole art to pheno selecting for that. Like you smell it when it's fresh and live, but then you need to pay attention to it, obviously, when it's cured, and see how that smells and how that comes out of the jar and stuff like that. But I could see that concentrates were the future, in a sense of being able to share that experience. It's also very concentrated, less packaging, like all those things. It's a little cleaner burning, or a lot cleaner burning, depending on who you talk to. So if someone's concerned for their lungs and things like that, which I've never had any issues smoking joints and cardiovascular exercise at all. I mean, Allen Iverson didn't seem to either.
No.
But
it's a long list. Yeah, list.
But I'm getting into the weeds on that. But, you know, the live resin, once we did it right, we figured it out. There was no one helped us. There was no playbook or anything like that. You just had to kind of figure it out. And we kind of did it right. But thinking back to like what we do now and what we did back then, it's vastly different.
Well, it's
kind of same fundamentals, but
yeah, I mean, I think that's with anything, and especially in cannabis, because it's evolving. In fact, I was having a conversation driving over with somebody here, and it's like, oh, bro, what 2016 me thought I knew, and 2018 me, as the game continues on, you just, whatever it is, you know, you just calibrate and keep getting better. So were you guys growing?
Yeah, so we were so successful in 17 that, and I always looked for warehouses. I owned a couple gyms. That's where the jiu-jitsu gym was in.
Looking fit over there. That makes sense.
I'm a little out of shape right now. I drive too much. But at that time, I used to train a couple times a day. Plus, I've had a knee replacement to my right knee. We can get into that later of why, or how that came to be at a younger age. But we were so successful then, and I was always looking for warehouses. It was just like a habit. I would just look all the time. And I found this warehouse that we're in now, and the owner, Rich, rented us like a little wing of it. And I was really transparent with him. This was in 2016. I said, hey, would it be okay if we did a small little grow in here? And we just kept the doors shut. We're very professional, you know, it'll be really, and he had like a furniture factory, a biodiesel thing that, you know, he was renting out of the other place, and or it's a cabinet factory. I don't know why I called it furniture factory, but irrelevant. He let us do it, to my surprise. So we're just renting there. We put in like I don't even know how much it was, but it was a lot more money than we'd ever spent on a facility. And we started growing in there. And that was when we transitioned from organic living soil in pots to beds. And beds, that was quite a learning curve, at least for us at that time, because we're in beds, you're reusing the soil. You're not taking it out. So you're either pulling out the root balls, or you're no-tilling it, and you're just cutting off the top of the plant and planting next to it, and letting the worms and biology take care of everything else. But I would ask Rich, like the owner at the time, every 2 weeks, like, hey, if you ever want to sell this place, you know, keep me in mind. Every 2 weeks I would ask him. And, you know, one afternoon I got a call, and he's like, hey, were you serious about wanting to buy the property? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, I've got another guy that I promised I'd let him. So he let us, you know, fight over it, so to speak. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is great. But we ended up getting it, and that committed us before 64 to that property, to purchasing it. We knew it was going to be Humboldt Ca or 64. And
how'd you know it was zoned? Like,
we knew that Arcata, because of the city, I'd worked with the city in getting my gyms permitted. And we'd already heard in the community that it was coming. Right. You know, because some of the legislation was being drafted in Humboldt, or some of the same people that were working on getting on Humboldt Ca and stuff were working on an initiative in Humboldt, and we were supporting that. And so we would hear the intel from there, and then we were able to, decide what we wanted to do. And at that time that we committed, I'm having a brain thing here. Might have to cut, but
okay, we'll get it.
No.
So you commit to the warehouse. You're about to buy it.
Yeah, and we bought it, and we knew Malcursa was coming or Prop 64, and we voted no on 64 because it just seemed like it was going to be hard to navigate. We had no idea how hard it was. In fact, I told someone yesterday or whatever the other week that if I would have known it was going to be this way, I would have never done it.
Right. I mean,
like no way.
Yeah.
Like no fucking.
You're one of the smart ones. A lot of people like to say it, and I know guys that were against it at the time. And look, it seemed like a good path forward. Whatever. Now, obviously, it's a total disaster. And my thing is like, look, they could fucking fix it, right? But they just can't fix anything.
I mean, it seems like it was by design.
Well, look, it's funny you say that. I used to be on team. They're just incompetent. I am starting to think that they're picking winners and losers. They're intentionally fucking over everybody who is legacy and the small farmers, and that basically they're trying to depress down the assets to as little as possible worth so that nobody could really get too far, so that when they federally legalize it, if you don't think big pharma's up there fucking twisting their mustaches, figuring out how to skull fuck us all, that's probably what's happening. So I'm getting a little more on the, conspiracy side. I don't know if they're that smart. And I don't say that like to be funny. Like, I honestly don't.
There's good points to they don't care and ignorance and all that kind of stuff.
They're definitely stupid and ignorant, right? And evil. The only question is, which one of the three are they in this thing? But so when you saw Prop 64, what stuck out as like, okay, we're gonna vote no on this. What was your leading? Because now, just fast forwarding.
The taxes.
Right.
I mean, what other industry pays taxes ahead of time before you even sell anything? Is there one?
No, it's fucking crazy.
I mean, that seemed pretty hard to navigate for us. Like, we didn't even understand that because we had a distribution license. So we were like, we're going to have to pay the taxes on this.
Yeah, no, and that was the old 27% that they just pulled out of their ass. Because Prop 64 actually says 15 on the retailer, which we could debate where the right place is for it. This idea that they moved it because they thought it'd be easier to collect, and then 27, that's a made up number, right? Like, they assumed a markup, which, by the way, we weren't making. So our effective tax rate was actually more because we have a little better margin now, but in the early years, we ran really, really tight because we didn't have the purchasing power. We were at 28, 30% margin. So when you're paying the 27% markup and they're assuming you're going to mark it up 75, 80%, and you're not, you're actually paying an effective rate of 18, 19. And that's just all made up, law. At that moment, were you aware? So I didn't become aware of this unlimited tier 2 caps until later on.
I wasn't aware.
Yeah, me neither. It just didn't get on the radar, seemed to get through. And then where the issue came up for us was, we weren't going crazy or anything. We ended up, trading those grows and just going straight to retail. But we had, I won't name 2 of the counties, but we had 3 that were legit in Calaveras County. And then we ended up grabbing one in Yolo County as they were about to pass it. In the second year, we were legit. So those 2 of them were in my wife's name, and we're like, oh, she can't have 1 acres, right? Uh-oh. And then they're like, no, you can blast them through unlimited tier 2. And then I was like, oh, that's fucking weird. I thought there was going to be a max, right? And we weren't trying to get crazy. We just had 2, at least makes them find a friend or something, right? And figure it out. So, I just think that got put through really quietly, especially you're up there. It seems like you're on the front line of this, passing. And then what I've learned in politics, and look, I'm not saying I've never done it myself, but I would like to think that, if I do have some control in the matter and I'm dropping a one-liner in there that's going to help me, we're going to do it for the right reasons. We're not going to skull fuck an entire industry. This little one line that makes it through quietly, that's so consequential. Like, how does that I know there's theories about it, and if you don't want to throw any names out, but how do you think that happens without getting the input of the actual, call it the real industry, right? And at that time, I wouldn't even put myself in that category. I'm talking the real fucking people from Humboldt, that, you know, third generation. That's the real industry. You know, and obviously there's, you know, a lot of stuff happening in LA and different parts. But like, to me, especially on the grow side, you know, that's what California should have protected. How does that happen with no input? It's just a small group of people up there calling the shots, or they didn't realize, or like, because that never was really.
No idea.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like, and this is how shit happens. Like, and I've seen it happen on the local. Like, we don't really play at the state because, like, you know, you just got to be too big to play at the state. But sometimes we'll get, you know, pretty good engagement in the local community, you know, cities, because it is local controlled still. And, you know, we always try to do the right thing. Don't get me wrong, Catalyst First Agenda, if we want to get our license too, but like, we don't close shit out, and, you know, we don't do shit that's just, you know, beyond the pale. And, you know, we're always bringing, you know, good shit to the community. But through this process, I realized, like, sometimes it's just the one line, or, you know, whatever, the two lines, but they managed to get that through really tricky. And how we know, in my mind, that that was a loophole and was intentionally hidden, they would have just said unlimited, you know, 1 acre caps. And to anybody who's watching that's a layman that doesn't understand, there's 3 tiers of licenses, just to explain it. There's a cap, you can only have 1 acre. The tier 2s are 10,000 square foot licenses, and you could have as many of those as you fucking want, right? So then, like, this idea that you could only have 1 acre is got blown out of the water. So you have farms, you know, one of them you probably know I'm familiar with, giving a little hard time to, but they have, you know, they could go up to 6 million square feet of canopy. So in theory, they could have 6,000, did I do that math right? Whatever it is, 600 or 6,000, I got to add the zeros. Yeah, licenses that are 10,000 feet, which is just crazy. So when you do it like that, there's no doubt that it was done slick and intentional and meant to, you know, slip through the, you know, the unless you were in on the secret, so to speak.
Corrupt.
Yeah, just fucking straight at it.
Crazy.
Yeah. Let me ask you a little bit about because they do go together. In fact, Nathan, who's out there, is from the snowboard culture. I know the surf or the surf too, and skate culture. I might be taking a quantum leap here, but I know you have a little snowboarding in your background. I'll ask you about that, and then maybe the knee injury came from that, because most fucking snowboarders and skiers I know that are rolling around with knee injuries. That's how it happens. So tell me a little bit, you know, how the snowboarding, if it all, you know, crosses over into the cannabis industry. And then just curiosity, since you brought it up, you know, how'd you fuck your knee up?
Snowboarding and cannabis crossing over, they're perfect together. You know, for athletes, you can't go out and drink and then recover and ride the next day very well. But with cannabis, you can relax, chill, and it doesn't affect you the next day, you know, in a negative way. So, you know, weed was always around. It was in our house, you know, everyone smoked it, and it just kind of went hand in hand in the mountains. But I started snowboarding back in high school. Like, I think it was sophomore year or something like that. And I'd already been a skateboarder, and the bug bit me, and, you know, I was going every chance I could get, and, you know, just kind of right place at the right time. I home mountain was Boreal, this little ski hill, because we could go after school and go at night skiing, you know, or night snowboarding, and you could get some runs in afterwards and things like that. But up in Tahoe at that time, that was, you know, one of the meccas for where a lot of the pros were. And so you were, you know, when you're around that and you can see the level that you want to be at, or should, you know, you need to be at, and also the companies are up there and the reps and everything. So I got sponsored right out of high school by the NorCal Burton rep. So I was just riding for him, and I forget what it was. I think I won like the Coca-Cola Classic at Squaw Valley.
You're not just like you got some fucking game on the snowboarding side.
That's when I got picked up, right, you know, for real by the same company. It was Burton at the time. And it was just a fun ride. And I ended up blowing my knee out, you know, 4 years in or 3 years in. And I think that would have been fine. Like, my knee was already hurt from skateboarding. Like, I got it repaired, and I just didn't have the right coaching or mentality or the temperament to like do the physical therapy the way I know now it should have been done. And I rushed it. I was worried I was going to lose my contract, and I was worried I was falling behind and things like that. And just, went out too soon and blew it out right away again. And so I got a second surgery. Then I did lose my contract eventually. And I started working in the industry, How
does it treat you today? Just not maximum athletic, or is it still?
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. Like, I had the 2 surgeries from snowboarding, and I got into jiu-jitsu and training, and then owning the couple gyms. That's a whole nother, decade in my life. But I ended up blowing it out training with our team that was going to be fighting for in Bellator, because I like the energy right around as it leads up to the fights. The energy of the training is just like, you can't match it. It's on fire. It's just like the guys it's almost at fight pace, Nice. And so it's just like really pushes you. You get nervous before you go in there in the morning and stuff like that, which is amazing.
You ever consume cannabis doing aerobic or jiu-jitsu ahead of time? All of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know guys that swear by it at the gym. So it's obviously the big myth is like, I smoke, sit around.
Not at all.
Not at all.
But I mean, I wouldn't go get super high before we were going to do something like really, really hard.
Right.
Pushing into the 90-95% zone,
right,
where you're going all out. I don't know. For me, that's not. I would smoke it and train like at 70-80% when you're playing. You're playing around and you're still breathing heavy and
even
things
in
like
cannabis,
that.
Something like that. Like I might smoke a little bit at the end of the show if somebody has something, but if I'm trying to be maximum articulate, just the way my mind works, I just want to stay on point all day. Then at night, smoke. But if I'm doing something that's 70%, which is like, hey, I'm going to a grand opening or anything, it's like, fuck it, right. All flowers were easy. So let me, I don't think people realize, or maybe they do, but obviously, No Till Kings is one. There's a couple other ones out there that are doing the indoor organic, no till soil. Explain to those who might not understand what that is, or what the difference is in the actual process and what makes it, unique, growing that style. Cause it seems to be, in my humble opinion, ever so slightly catching on as an indoor matter. Perhaps even the future of the market, we'll see which way it shifts. You never know. The consumers in the end are going to, I always tell people they're the judge, jury, and executioner. Like, I can help you get on the shelf. I could, maybe ever so slightly push it, introduce you to the right people, but the fucking product, that's it. That's the thing. So, in so much as, I think the people that are watching, that take the time to watch an hour, because we're in a short attention span universe, they want to know, like, hey, what am I getting? So, what makes it unique, and tell us a little bit about that process, because it is the minority of growers out there that are doing it that way.
Yeah. So we grow in beds. They're fairly deep beds. I think they're 18 inches deep by 5 feet wide. And we build the soil from the beginning. So it's a custom blend of, funnily enough, soilless media, but like cocoa peat, perlite, other things. And then over time, with amendments and things like that, it turns into your own, soil, if you will. We've been using them for years, where it's run after run. So we're replanting in the beds, right, one run after the next run. And so we're really stewards of the plant, but we're also building and stewarding that soil so that it works with the plant, and that nothing goes too imbalanced, or you don't have a pathogen in the soil that's outweighing, like bad bacteria outweighing good bacteria, just like your own gut, so to speak. And so that would be one of the main differences of like what we're doing, as opposed to, like a hydroponic situation where you're feeding in a bell curve, for according to the plant's stages of its life, really customizing, with the fertigation, and able to kind of turn it and spin it on a dime, with the hydroponic or, situation. But with us, we're more looking at it like, is the soil balanced? Does it have enough minerals and nutrients in the right ratios? to give the plant what it needs, because the plants are really good at communicating with the microbes through exudates and fungi and things like that. And the plant lets the microbe knows what it needs, and they do an exchange. And so they're the ones controlling that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, there's 3 so far I've talked in depth about this, and that are on the organic side, 2 indoor, 1 that's, growing in greenhouse. And they talk about the plant in a way that it's like a living, almost barely conscious thing that will tell you things, that will let you know. So I think that's interesting. Like, as far as, disposition, how do you think you're able to like attenuate in better to, maybe a plant's, whatever it is, consciousness and needs, what
plants show you when you walk in the room, the plant's leaves and their posture, if you will. It's not the appropriate word, but maybe it is. They show you,
or say their attention up, right? Or,
they tell you, if especially if you once you get the eye for it, it's pretty obvious if the plant's leaves are all down that it has no water, right?
Right.
But there's little nuances. There's certain types of tip burn, or certain deficiencies that express themselves uniquely. And once you learn what that is, and it's validated with a tissue analysis or a soil analysis, and you correlate those 2 together, you've just learned, and by the time you see it, by the way, it's too late. I mean, you can correct it and make good of the run, as opposed to not addressing it at all. But, really, really good run. The plant just looks happy the entire time, right. And there's very little deficiencies, and they're just like, it's on, it seems like autopilot.
Right. It's only got the 90-day life. So every day you want to, get it, make the day count. I mean, what do you think? Do you think, more? And then look, obviously, as far as an environmental issue, you're reusing the soils, less waste, the whole deal. Just as a general thought, do you think it's headed more in that direction, or?
I think it's headed more in that direction as far as there's more people willing to do it, but scaling living soil isn't really that doable right now. Like indoor, I'm speaking indoor, obviously. Right. It's just, I could see it happening. I could see someone's going to do it. I know. Did I just say it? You can't really do it. Well, what I meant by that was like,
it's just more
investment wise. Like,
right, yeah.
There's not a lot of people. You don't see any.
Right.
There's very few. I think one of the larger guys is in Las Vegas, Green Life Productions, I think.
Right.
That said, I think it is doable. I think everything progresses, and as technology progresses, and, meaning just, it could be as simple as this style of beds and a track system, more like into a greenhouse, and the design of the whole facility, where you could kind of like,
right,
move things in and out and around, and is built a little better, more intentional for it. But,
I think it's super interesting, though. I do think the quality of the product, look, there's some guys that are branding beasts, and that's, more power to them. I do think at some point in this game, the quality of the product is becoming the more determinative outcome. And then you build your spreadsheet back from that, where I think that's what's happening. Whereas look at all these fucking bankers that got the shit kicked out of them. God bless them, but I kind of like to laugh at them. And like, that's because they looked at the spreadsheet, what the outcome could be, what the yield could be. And then, a lot of the best growers that I've spoken with, they're like, I'm not focused on the yield. I'm focused at producing the best possible product, because the end of the day, then you get the customer retention, and the customer retention is, then you don't have to fucking chase people that are all new customers all the time.
Or discount your product.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, now I lost my train of thought. I had one. Oh yeah. So, by the way, one of the few farms that really, I think the demand is exceeding the supply, and I was talking to some of the guys the day before we came on. Appreciate that, we kind of get, I don't want to say dibs, but we're one of the people that get dibs, on it, and I know the ghost candy's a big seller, and that one just seems to move really good. How is it dealing with the other accounts and any new phenos kind of, well, we'll ask them one at a time. I mean, what would you say is your, blockbuster strains or the ones that are, really hitting, and then, maybe anything new that's in the, that's in the pipe?
I'd say I'm happy with what we've put out so far. I think our best is coming, like, very soon. It's growing right now. And we've got several OG crosses. One is the iOS OG. It took us back immediately when we got it out of the curing room, took it home and trimmed it, on our table, and just the smell that came off of it. And when we ground it, it was just like, memory's a funny thing. So whatever you think you remember, it's a tricky thing. But I thought it was impressive that something in 2023 that we hunted from seed took us back to that memory. And I wanted to see if it did that to other people. So I took it to several of your bud tenders, and it passed with flying colors. It checked all the boxes in their quote of an OG, or a really good OG. So we've got, several of those. We've got a couple phenos of it. We've got a completely different cross coming out. That's a Seattle Sour and an OG, and they're just gassy and cushy and wonderful.
When are those coming out?
Those are coming out in August and September, both. And then we have a host of a bunch of phenos, everything from Haze to Sunset Sherbert, RS11, OG, what is it? Mandelbrot made OG Turpentine, OG Turpentine.
Nice.
And
we set some aside for us. No, I was kidding.
I'm excited for that one.
What I picked up on that you said is really cool. So you went and sought out some bud tenders, to have them taste tested for you. So, and
I have a circle of people that I really trust to just tell me the truth. Like that. That's
fucking wisdom right there. Like that's wisdom. So
we brought it to a smoke session, had them try it.
Yeah, and
introduced it. Like, hey, it's coming.
And I say this a lot. The bud tenders are really the ones that are the gatekeepers to the shelf. Look, obviously we could let people on and off, but at the end of the day, like, it's got to sell. So, okay, you got this new thing, you want to taste test it. Boom, you get on the phone. You don't have to drop names, but how do you know the bud tenders to just because, look, I hope the guys now doesn't watch this, but, friend of a friend wants to get on and whatever, one purchaser isn't calling him back. And like, I'm trying to help him, I'm busy. And then, I tell him like, I'm giving him a nice advice, but direct advice. And I'm trying to help him out. Like, that's your fucking problem, bro. You only know 2 people in this whole organization. Like, you're already losing, right? Like, go meet some more fucking people, right? You should be able to call 15 different people or whatever, or at least have some reliable ones. And these are like somebody that I'm trying to help. So like, how did you build those relationships with the bud tender? Yeah. How did you, do you call them up? How's it work? Do you see them at the sesh? I think this is an important part of the process that I think a lot of, or not a lot, but maybe not everybody is fully engaged in it. It's as important part of it as any, right?
Yeah. We just straight up bribe them.
I love it.
I'm just kidding. No,
we want people to be proud to wear the Catalyst jersey. If they're getting bribes, as long as they're not going out of their way to push something to the customer.
We're too broke to bribe. But no, it's
we bribe count though.
In all seriousness, it was kind of like very responsive to anyone who reaches out to us. So that was one way. There's a couple people in particular I'm thinking of at Bellflower and Pomona. And then we also, came down, Erin and I both came down and did a smoke sesh at DTLA. And I came down and did one with Mason. He's our artist at Pomona. And we just hang out with everybody and, stay there as late as we can.
That's fucking
and just talk back and forth, listen to what they have to say. And
no, that's the game, because not only are you building the relationship, right? You're building the feedback on the product. And look, I say it to people when I get on, like, hey, I'm gonna get you some honest feedback. I'm not the guy, but there's people that I give the ultimate, kind of say to, and like, you want to get the feedback. And even if the feedback is negative, better to have.
I want the negative
Yeah.
more than I want the positive, but not many people will give it to you though, so it's hard.
Yeah, no, that's
hard to
true.
get.
The general thing is to be.
They have to feel really comfortable.
Yeah.
And even then,
Bree will give it to you though. not to say that you ever end up in that category, but it's funny, you know. There's
we do. We make mistakes. You know, I've gotten bad feedback, and it's been really helpful. So
I always say this: there's not one. So like, you know, people know I'll fix orders and shit, and there's not one brand or one flower or one cart brand that doesn't have a missed eighth or a missed batch. It's just part of it, right? Just like there's not a soccer player that's never missed a penalty kick. It just happens, right? To everybody. The idea is
we try really hard not to, but yeah.
Even 99.9% consistency, even, you know, some of my favorite brands, every once in a while, I'll get a, you know, hey, it had this in there. Okay, we got you. Or, you know, whatever it is. But getting that feedback is critical.
We missed a few labels.
Yeah. And then, didn't we have a debate about that or something? That came up. I was kind of asking around a little bit today. So Ghost Candy is apparently potentially kid branding. I don't know. I probably shouldn't say this on the thing. And my point that I made was like, I keep my kids like on a really, like, if you're going to eat candy, you might just get one. Like the really because I think the rule is like 72-28. So I don't know what crosses it over, but I was like, we were kind of joking like, but the really Orca-fat motherfuckers are probably, and there's way more adults are probably eating more candy than the kids otherwise.
Yeah.
So like, you know, some of this compliance stuff, and then you know,
That's funny you mentioned that. He's referring to that you could write cookies or gelato or ice cream, but you can't write candy on a label. That's what you're referring to. Right? Yeah. So we just wrote it differently. Like we just used like the and symbol and pound sign and exclamation point. And it's funny because I don't know how many times I've heard it now, but the bud tenders and managers and stuff thought it was a completely different word. So you can use your imagination. Candy, C, and then 4 other letters there. What bad words that
You're
would be.
right. That's fine. Well, even on Instagram, right? You just learn
It worked out better.
Yeah.
Is where I was going with.
Well, it leaves a little to the imagination. Yeah. And then it's fun with the deals. Every once in a while, if I'm being honest, you know, I'll throw one out and I don't know, we'll throw out a fat one. We'll decide later because you can't say 40% off or they're going to get your ass. Same thing, weed at fire prices. I'll usually put the
on Instagram.
W33D. Because I don't know who fucking sitting around all day watching my page, but like, if I do anything that's, you know, uncouth,
you're flagged.
They're going to get my ass.
Yeah.
But you know, as much as it's annoying and I think stupid and like where the lines get drawn, you know, who the fuck knows. But it's like, they're never going to stop you from doing it. And then I don't know why candy is kids and cookies is not. And, you know, whatever. I just think it's, you know, goofy. It's not like you're, you know, you're putting, you know, maybe a borderline would be putting Mickey Mouse.
It's just funny. They drew the line right there. Just no candy.
Yeah. No candy.
No candy.
It doesn't make any,
but anything else is fine.
It's cool.
Which is good. I'm glad they didn't cut out all the other stuff.
Right. No. Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, I think everybody kind of knows, you know, what it is or how it got there. But, you know, I think this is an important message to get out to anybody that is, you know, trying to be successful. Like this big macro marketing, you know, sometimes it will take hold, but generally like what you're doing and you're meeting the people, and what always makes me feel good and what we try to do at Catalyst is uplift, you know, the brands that have been around for a while that really are engaging, that really are, you know, quality. And a large part of what the show is about, it's a little passion project from now. We'll see where it goes, is that. And then hearing people, you know, say that, hey, you know, I spent time with the bud tenders and I did this, you know, I just, you know, couldn't appreciate that fact anymore. I think it's, you know, super fucking cool that
it was really cool for us. You know, we came away from it like, wow, that was really fun.
Yeah. Every time I go in there and I meet them and I hang out, or before a store opens, I mean, they're the salt of the earth people, and they know the product as good as, you know, generally speaking, as good as anybody out there. And if, you know, I also want our bud tenders, if they're recommending it, it's a bad for us if they recommend something that's not good or they're not honest about the product, right? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, you could fool a customer once. Now you maybe lost that customer. So, you know, obviously, you know, we don't want to like badmouth products or anything like that, but we do if and there's ways to recommend things that they're, you know, whatever. But it's important for us, for our bud tenders, to be truth tellers to the customer. Let me ask you this: I know some guys are getting the OCal certification thing going. Have you looked into that at all? Because I know it's a thing that can happen now. I've just been learning about it.
A while back, I did with Clean Green.
Right.
I just kind of came back to the same conclusion recently. Like I was thinking about it, and we could certainly apply and I believe pass. I don't think there's anything I know there's nothing that we're using that wouldn't pass. I haven't read their criteria for what you need to pass with, but we're not using any different products than we did back when we were going to do Clean Green, and his was supposed to be modeled directly after the USDA organic.
Right.
And so that's the one I'm referring to. But I don't know. I think we will do something like that, but I'm not like in a rush. I mean, I feel like if, when I go to the farmer's market and I buy something from a farmer and they tell me how they grew it and it's really, really delicious and good, like I believe them. Right. Because you could get that certification.
Right.
And as soon as the guy walks out the door, you can use whatever you want. Right. Right. As long as it passes the COA test. So it's really an honor system thing. At the end of the day, I mean, we are organic. That's what I was going to say. Living soil really implies,
right? Is
because we're not allowed to use the word organic because the FDA owns it, and so therefore, like our name used to be Royal Key Organics. That was our name, RKO.
Right.
And we took the organic off the label in about 2019 when we learned, or 18. Excuse me, when we came into the Prop 64 and learned that we couldn't use it.
There's you definitely can't put it on. I don't want to say definitely, but I'm pretty sure, not as a compliance person, you can't put it on a label. There's a theory out there. I won't say whose theory it is. It's caused a debate with compliance in the office that you could market it as organic. And that's up for debate. Yes. The
FDA will tell you if you can or can't. Yeah. They'll say no.
But you definitely can't put it on the label, which is annoying, right? It's just another thing that you can't, do. Let me ask you kind of just an interesting one that always seems to be coming up.
But yeah, we will get one. We will get one sometime. I'm waiting for when I don't know, if it means something and it helps someone feel more comfortable buying our product and I come to that conclusion, then we'll do it.
I kind of like the idea of like, I can get it, but then what does it really mean, right?
Yeah.
It's cool to get it, but it means you've at least gone through the process, but that's a, interesting take on it. Let me ask you just, as far as extending terms and the AR issues, obviously some like...
No comment.
No comment?
No, I mean, it's a mess out there.
It's a mess.
And you know that, it's just...
To me, it's levels. It's like there's the egregious, check bouncer fucking guys doing it on absolute purpose. Then there's the guys that are like in just super fucking denial, like your business model's broken, bro.
I mean, we had an account. Well, I won't say we. Erin, my wife, had an account straight up tell her like, well, like she was trying to collect, and it's been over a year, and she's like, the account finally told her, one of the lady, I think it was one of the owners, a lady told her, well, prove that you sold that to us.
Yeah.
Prove we ever got it.
Right.
Erin was like, what?
Right.
It was in metric. It was transferred. Like, right. I don't, right. But there's some people that just aren't going to pay. But, recently it seems a lot worse. We're getting responses, but I feel everyone's financial pain out there.
Yeah.
The domino effect or the ripple effect from everything from herbal to whatever else is going on.
No, and look, I do think, there's some sympathy for those that are like holding on to the last breath, but it's
tough.
Once you sell the weed, you got to fucking pay, right? That's my take on it. You sold the weed, you got to fucking pay. You shouldn't have took the terms. If you couldn't have met them, if you're a few days late, whatever, but like pay the fucking money. As far as, so you got the facility in California. Any plans on expansion, or you pretty much staying pat till the storm blows over? But
we're going to put another couple rooms online, so we can get more things out there, grow more things at once. We'd like a little more space. And so as far as expanding, we're going to just expand out into our existing footprint and hold on for a minute.
I mean, I think it's honestly some of the wisest words is, right sizing the business. I've seen the people that are, that way too fast. Now they couldn't keep up with it. And guys that are just kind of moving along, the cockroaches, and I say that in the nicest way possible, like they're going to fucking be here, right? And if you don't get over your skis too far, you don't let the demand not be there, right? And then you got to make bad decisions because you're not at a point of
it's terrible.
Neutrality, right? And then
Thanks.
next thing you know, you're trying to fling weed off to people with bad credit. I don't know a person that hasn't got burned, at least that's really truly in the game, at least a handful of times. It is a really fucked situation. And then if they're trying to make it right, okay, but I'm starting to see it out there as like a straight it's like a fucking business model. Like, hey, we'll just take this and we'll replace them with somebody else later. It's like, whoa, that's not not good.
No.
So as far as maybe going out of state, are you hunkered down in California? Obviously, for the short term, it sounds like it.
Obviously, we're committed here, but we have had talks and are in talks for other states. But I'd say our primary mission is to do really well here. And we've got a lot that we want to do that we haven't done yet here that we're working on now. And so we're really into that. And when you expand somewhere else, there's only so much energy to create so many things. So while we want to do that, we're going to be really careful with whom we do it with and how big it is or how much energy draw it is. So
it's fucking smart, man. There you go. Anything on the horizon new, as we're kind of closing it up?
Breeding projects and phenos. That's going to be our biggest thing going forward.
Tell us a little bit about that. Like, how does, okay, so obviously, you want a new pheno. Like, how do you go about doing that? Or is there a little bit of randomness to it? Or what's the,
yes and yes and yeah. It's like a lottery ticket sometimes. I mean, in a sense that, let's say you only pop 6 seeds, which we always try to pop 50, because I know that in 6, like, my likelihood is way lower at finding something great. But depending on the way it was bred, you get lucky if you find something that is really truly special. I mean, it might be special to you, but if we define what special really is, like for a market, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Then it's really rare to find something that's super, super desirable to almost everyone, right? I mean, how many cultivars are even like that in general?
Right. Very few.
Very few.
Especially because everybody has such a different endocrine system. Yeah. Endocannabinoid system.
Right.
Fucking couldn't get that word out.
Different tastes and things like that. Yeah. Right. But, like Skittles, like huge.
Right. Doesn't yield a lot though. We used to grow that back in the day, but.
No, I was just talking about it today actually with someone.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Yeah.
It grows slow. It has a small root mass. It's like, yeah. But the whole pheno thing, it's so fun because, you never know what you're going to, if you're going to get something really great, but there's just something about the hope that it brings to do those actions, to look for something that resonates with you, that you're really excited to share. And it just, even though we're going through all this stuff that I don't even want to talk about, because it's just like, it makes all of that bearable.
No, I know.
And worthwhile once in a while.
Well, it's just that thing. We're chasing a thing or chasing a license or whatever. And that, we actually were successful in Linwood on Tuesday. Nathan was with me and we got back on the 710. I already know I'm not going to sleep till like 3 because the dopamine starts hitting. It was cool.
Oh,
I was like, let's just go back to the fucking property. So we do a U-turn, get back, and you start visualizing what you're doing. Then the next day we stop and we've already talked to the tenants. Like when it's occupied, we always take good care of everybody. We don't want to be kicking people out of their place. But look, man, anybody who's, out there, coming into the Catalyst store, Sid, one of the rare ones that I legitimately, keep on the nightstand, growing with love and care. And look, right now there's a washout happening. And if anybody's, still standing, it's impressive. I think you hear these stories, we've done, 12 episodes. I think, 8 of them or so are people who are, growing product and or manufacturing product. And you hear the theme over and over again, right-sized, running lean, product quality first. So I would urge anybody that's out there shopping to make sure that you give Royal Ca a shot. And, want to give a shout out to Josh. I know he was a reluctant guest, so to speak. Those are my favorite kind, by the way.
Not because I didn't want to talk to you.
No, I get it.
It's the camera thing.
No, I mean, I think generally, growers, A, there's like an old culture to it. And B, if you really, really like plants, you might be a little more introverted, right? My wife's super introverted. So when he went to Stanton, there was like extra plants from the landscaping. She just regular plants, took them home. So I think that, I appreciate you coming on. And I do think it's important
Thank you.
to get the stories out there so that there is a human element behind the product. And, sometimes the consumer, they see the product, they open it up, and they don't realize, maybe everything that goes into it. And then also, maybe they get stuck in their ways a little bit. So, we want them to, experiment, go out there, try, see what they like. So, thanks a million for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Royal Ca. If you're out there shopping at a Catalyst, make sure you pick it up, give it a go. Some good ass shit. It's sitting on my nightstand.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who supports us. We really, really appreciate you.
That was a way better closeout. There you go. We're going to just go rap.
Weed for the people.
There you go.